president apparently took our ally South Korea by surprise when he announced that he would stop military drills the two countries conduct together, at least for now. That's what he said at the summit. There are now discussions on Capitol Hill that maybe people are walking that back already, but it's unclear. They're talking. When we know something, we'll let you know. A new round of tests is set to start coming up in August. The word the North Koreans used to describe the drills, here.
We will be stopping the war games, which will save us a tremendous amount of money, unless and until we see that the future negotiation is not going along like it should. But we'll be saving a tremendous amount of money. Plus, I think it's very provocative.
North Korea also calls the exercises provocative, so the president is moving toward the North Korean language. Our military calls them defensive, for defense against attack. South Korea's defense ministry reports there have not been any discussions yet with Washington about canceling the drills or changing the drills in any way whatsoever, full stop. The spokesman for U.S. forces in the region also says there's been no updated guidance and troops will continue to prepare until the Pentagon issues a new order. The preparations happened all year round. 300,000 troops, 2 militaries, joint exercises, as if there were an attack. Now, minutes ago, the House Majority Whip Steve Scalise told reporters in Washington everything is dependent on Kim Jong Un following through with concrete steps. Let's turn to Tara Mahler, a former CIA military analyst, now a senior policy advisor and spokesperson for the Counter-Extremism Project. So, Tara, thank you, Tara, by the way, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
The first thing that happened was we learned from the parties at the discussion in Singapore that the president had told him, yep, the provocative war games are over, meaning the defensive drill exercises are not going to happen anymore. And we learned that he hadn't told the South Koreans, and then we knew that would get to Washington, and then we knew that people would have to start splaining, Congress-splaining, what it was that the president had done, and now Steve Scalise is apparently doing a little Congress-splaining, and we really don't know, do we, what's about to happen?
We don't really know what's about to happen.
Because no one knows but the president.
Exactly, and this is not really that unusual in the Trump administration that you see sort of administration officials scrambling after the fact. I do think one of the troubling things related to the summit, and first I want to start off by praising the summit. The fact that it occurred, the fact that you have diplomacy in play, you've de-escalated some tensions, that's all a positive thing. Praise where praise is due. But having said that, I do think it was problematic that we don't really have a true record of what transpired between the two leaders, particularly for the one-on-one conversation.
We don't have any record of what happened.
No record of what happened in that room, what was said, what was promised, what wasn't promised. And even in the discussions after, there was no really official transcript or summary released by the White House. And as someone who does foreign policy and who's former intel, I just find that somewhat problematic, not just from the public's perspective,
Tara,
but also for President Trump.
Seriously?
Somewhat
You're very
problematic.
straightforward, usually.
Well, I mean, I think I understand there are reasons you want to keep some discussions private, but there needs to be a record, even if it's a summary, released about what was said. And I think part of the problem here was that the language that was used was very imprecise, both in the document that both sides signed. It was vague, it was imprecise. It didn't even really meet the bar of previous negotiations that we've had with the North Koreans. And President Trump's language also isn't typically all that precise about stopping the war games, halting the war games. These are scheduled twice a year with other exercises in between. I'm not saying that that should be off the table as a potential measure that we can sort of yield on. Having said that, there should have been the North Koreans need to do X, Y, and Z by this time frame, and then we'll perhaps discuss delaying or thwarting or changing around what's happening with the drills. That didn't happen. So I think now the Pentagon was caught off guard, the Japanese caught off guard, the South Koreans caught off guard, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we see President Trump walk it back in the next week or two once everybody sort of sees what happens or what the North Koreans are going to do going forward.
Well, as you mentioned, process, though, is different than it used to be. And in the world you're discussing, President Trump could lay out some sort of vague ideas, and then Mike Pompeo could go in there and really get some diplomacy going and maybe make some progress, which would be the best thing imaginable. So now it's really up to Mike Pompeo largely, isn't it?
It is, and the working groups that are established and the hard work of individuals behind the scenes at the State Department, in the intelligence community. All of these resources need to come into play in terms of laying out a structured timetable, a phased negotiation. What I'd like to see here is something that lays out, if we do X, they follow with Y, and vice versa over a period of time. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build trust. It doesn't really matter to me personally what Kim Jong Un said to Trump in this meeting, privately or publicly. It matters whether or not his actions align with that, and that we can verify that those actions align with his words.
And if not, just blame Canada.
And if not, just blame Trudeau. Why not?
Why not? Tara Mahler, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
A new round in the Trump administration's trade fight with Canada, which is why I mentioned that. One of the president's advisors has now apologized for that whole special place in hell thing. Details and reaction from north of the wall coming up.
Do you know which investment could